I'm RJ. I'm originally from Philadelphia by way of Florida, coming here live from Medellin, Colombia. Been here since March of 2023, but I really started coming to Colombia and seeing what the city and the country was like back in 2017.
Hello, my name is Jasmine McNeil. I am originally from Miami, Florida, born and raised, but I moved to Mexico from Atlanta, Georgia. I officially moved to Mexico May of 2020, mid-pandemic, and I have been here for 3 years and 5 months, and I am located in Playa del Carmen, Mexico.
Hi, everybody. I am Bree Brown, originally from Washington, D.C. I currently reside on the beautiful island of Caulker, Belize, and I have been here with my husband and my 2 kids for about a year and a half.
What up, everybody? My name is Akeem Tolson, born and raised in the Bronx, New York, but nowadays I divide my time between Caye, Colombia, and Richmond, Virginia. I've been in Caye, Colombia. I've been traveling to Caye, Colombia since 2018. I do tourism here, so I bring groups here. So I've been doing that since 2020. And I've had an apartment here since last year, since 2022. And from now on, for the foreseeable future, I'll be here. I'll be spending a lot of time here working on Afro-tourism. There's not a lot of tourist infrastructure here. So that makes it a really cool place to live because you can kind of blend in with the local population and not have to deal with the inflating prices with the tourism and stuff like that. When you approach people, you can, for like apartments and, basic necessities, you don't have to, there's no gringo pricing yet. So that's one of the benefits of living in Caye, Colombia. But it's coming. The gringo prices are coming.
That is so real, man. That is so real. So when I think about that, I'm literally like, it just depends on what city you go to, as Akeem mentioned regarding, that gringo pricing. And I was having this conversation the other day. The word gringo kind of frustrates me a little bit because it's such a blanket statement and, understanding coming from America and the different dynamics that you run into there, to be just lumped in with everybody that's not a Spanish speaker is kind of like, well, hey, it's just interesting to kind of be lumped into it. And to get that gringo pricing, yes, you do need to have a certain level of Spanish. But, one thing I realized is that we are always going to be guests in another country. And I think that's always really important to be aware of because we get people that come, Black expat. I think about it and it's really kind of grown over the years. Everybody talks like pre-pandemic. It's almost like BC. What happened before the pandemic? My life was entirely different.
That's true.
And expat used to mean something completely different before the pandemic. It used to mean somebody that was retired. And when I say retired, I mean probably in their mid to late 60s and was looking for somewhere to go and sit down. Now, not even transitioning from there, but it also probably meant relatively Caucasian Americans. Reason being is a lot of my family did not grow up traveling and seeing the world. It was really the legs that I gave and putting pictures up and telling my experiences that kind of got more people excited about that and wanted to kind of get into each other's reasons why they became a Black expat. It kind of shifted. And some of us came before the pandemic. Some of us came after the pandemic, but all of us chose to leave and kind of reshape what expat meant. And to really want to get a better understanding from your guys' perspective of why, like, for what?
Well, I don't mind sharing first because I've written so much about this. So I had first left the country during my Spelman days and I studied abroad in Paris, France. Absolutely loved it. Right after Spelman, I moved back to France. I worked in the south of France and loved it. And I really went there because I was inspired by Josephine Baker. I wanted to write and teach, do all these fantastic things as a Black woman in France, as a free Black woman in France. And I very soon realized that there was really no space for a Black female professional in Paris, France. And it was devastating. And I faced far more racism in Paris than I did in the United States. And so I came back and I was depressed and I was just so disappointed because, I was supposed to be the millennial version of Josephine Baker. And obviously, Spirit had other plans. And so, I came back and I had always wanted to move abroad. Like years and years ago, when I was working with the ambassador to Cambodia and his wife, I was considering, maybe taking the leap again and moving to Cambodia. But, things didn't really align the way that they were supposed to. And so I just kind of got very comfortable with living a life in the United States, perhaps traveling, doing all that. I met my husband and, we were dating. And so obviously, again, it's like, well, moving abroad while I'm dating someone, and I kind of feel like he might be, it was not really on the table. But for me, I think the pivotal point was when I became a mother, and I had both of my children during the pandemic. And these babies are 17 months apart. They're both boys. And it's like the United States during the pandemic went through a kind of like metamorphosis in that everything that had been diluted or kind of like submerged or like pushed to the side or brushed under the rug from literally decades ago, to me, it's like overwhelmingly came back. Like the racism, the way that people were treating each other, and the segregation, kind of isolation, the unvaxxed and the vaxxed, and the delineation from like everything that made us like a community. And like now we're, everything was becoming so politicized and brutal, and we're watching all of this like on TV, and we couldn't go anywhere. And, you become kind of addicted to learning about, well, how many people died today and how many people died yesterday? And, how many Black men or Black women were shot down by police officers? Like we are like, there was like tunnel vision of just like brutality. And once things started to loosen up, I was terrified. I had never felt this way. And I mean, I'm a daddy's girl, so I was raised under a Black man my entire life. I had never felt as terrified as I did when my husband would leave the house. I would say like 2021. When he would leave the house for work or whatever the hell it was, I was terrified because I had gotten to the realization that there is literally no guarantee that he will come home. And this is when I have a newborn. This is when I'm now pregnant again. And that fear was so toxic that I'm like, bruh, I can't live like this. And it doesn't matter that we have this beautiful house in Black suburbia in the DMV. It doesn't matter because I can't keep my husband safe. I'm not going to be able to keep my children safe, no matter what the hell I do. Doesn't matter, whether I pay my taxes on time or if I pay off my student loan debt. There's literally nothing I can do to ensure the safety of these human beings, two of which I've grown and one of whom I've fallen in love with. And that's when I really feel like Spirit was speaking through me and just reinvigorating that desire to consider a life outside the United States. And then things just kind of aligned such that, we had been to Caulker 2019, so right before the pandemic, for our honeymoon, and there was something about it that stuck. So 2021, 2 years later, once, things kind of started opening up and Belize opened their borders, that we were like, yo, let's go. Like, let's just get the fuck out of here and let's go. And we came back and it was like, that's really when like I gained a sense of perspective. I know I'm rambling, but I'm just very passionate about this. I gained such perspective because we came back to this island in 2021 and it's like all the devastation that we had heard about and seen. It's like none of it had happened. They had cases here on the island. They had cases and maybe a death or two, but I'm talking like the brutality, that feeling like your big country is closing in on you and your lack of safety and your lack of community because, maybe we're not vaccinated, but nobody gave a shit about who had what shot and who didn't and who's Black and who's not and what police officer is armed and what is it like. And that's when we were like, all right, look, we're working remotely anyway. This American dream is an illusion. It's a dream deferred, as Langston Hughes says. So let's come back with our 1-year-old at the time. Let's see if he likes it, because we're not going to be entirely selfish. Shit, we know we like it, but hey, if our kid doesn't connect with it, then. But we came back for a month with Josiah at the time, and it was instant. And watching my oldest, I was pregnant at the time, but watching my oldest just be free, to even see what freedom actually looked like. having come from a place where freedom, the land of the free, I'm like, this is a joke. This whole time, the concept of freedom for us is a joke. And I'm supposed to raise my kids in this ideology that is completely false. And once I saw my baby running these little sandy streets of Caulker and, playing in the water and eating good, high vibrational foods, it was a no-brainer. We went home, sold our shit. 10 months later, we moved back. And it's been a year and a half. Best decision ever.
Powerful. Oh, seriously.
I love that.
Seriously.
I love that.
Mhm.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
You sound like hip hop Harry, but who's next?
That's deep. It takes a lot of courage to uproot with a new family. And I'm gonna come in, but I want to touch on something I'll go into what you said, the news cycle during the pandemic and how it was the vaxxed against the unvaxxed. And it was like, so everything that, all of the content that the news cycle was pushing in during the pandemic was divisive. I could not believe that people were fighting so hard over who had the vaccine and who didn't have the vaccine. I mean, we were divided over everything.
Yes.
So the level of anxiety was so high. I remember during the pandemic, just the unknown, just being afraid of the unknown, going crazy, like not knowing, feeling like every new feeling in my body. Oh my God, is this COVID? Yo, I was tripping. I got stuck in Florida. I was with my ex in Florida. I was like in the middle of a move. I was going to move down to Florida. And this was the beginning of 2020. And from here, I'm going to go into my expat experience. During the pandemic, I was in Calí. I was in Calí January and February 2020, right before the pandemic. And we had a trip to Cuba planned, a group trip to Cuba. But I was here doing my research in Calí to create group experiences here too. And in mid-March, things started shutting down. So we had to cancel our group trip to Cuba, but I was stuck in Florida. And the news cycle was crazy because they're giving these numbers and these crazy inflated numbers. And what made me calm down was I called and I said, I want to get checked for COVID. And they were like, well, you probably don't have COVID. Don't go to because they were broadcasting, telling you where to go if you want to get tested and where, if you feel like you're sick, go here, go there. And I'm like, in my case, they told me, don't leave the house because if you're not infected, there's a high probability that you'll get infected. And I'm like, well, if that's what you're telling people, where are you getting these numbers? If you're telling everybody to stay home, who's infected? Who's really infected? And then I started thinking more critically about it. I'm like, okay, in New York, they're saying all of these people are dying daily. New York is a city of over 8 million people. What is their normal daily death rate? Let me look at that and compare it to how they're saying people are dying now because of COVID. And then when you look, people were like actually dying of things like kidney failure and all of these other pre-existing conditions, but they were just calling it COVID. And I'm not going to get into that. Was just for me doing my own research for my own sanity, because I was bugging. I honestly was bugging. During the first, I would say between March and May of 2020, I almost lost my mind because I'm sitting in the house afraid to go out. People are catching COVID who had not even left their house. So it's like, yo, how is this happening? So anyway, I had already been considering coming to Calí, Colombia. Calí, Colombia, if you don't already know, Calí, Colombia is the third largest city in Colombia. The population is over 2.5 million people. So it's not a small city. And it has the largest population of Black people. So Black Colombian. So that naturally, that kind of intrigued me in my curiosity, learning about Black people in Latin America. Like that was something that was still foreign to me. And that was what actually sparked my passion for creating these tours, connecting the diaspora through tourism, bringing people to Calí, bringing people to Cuba, taking people to Loíza, Puerto Rico to learn about Black culture in Latin America. So also Calí has the second largest population of Black people in South America. Salvador Bahia in Brazil has the largest population of Black people. So coming here, for me, it was important as an expat or as looking at Calí as a potential place to be an expat. It was important for me to connect to the local Black community. And that's something that's important to me. That's something that I support and I advise for Black people who are leaving the U.S. I think that's a very important part of we should make it an important part of our travels, because Black people in Latin America or Black people in non-Black, in places where we're not the dominant culture, we relate because we know what it is to be a color. We know what it is to be Black in a space that is, or in a non-Black space, or in a space that's dominated by European culture. Or as I say, a place where our faces are not on the currency. So I advise for people who are traveling out of the country for the first time, specifically for people in the U.S., check in with local expat communities. If you can't find a local Black community, and social media connects us. We're all connected by social media. If you go into the local, whatever city you're going to and whatever country you're going to, I advise you, look on Facebook. There are plenty of Facebook groups with expat community. That's usually my first place. If I'm going to a country that I've never been to, or if I'm planning a trip there, I always go to find a local Black expat community. And through there, that's where I find most of my resources. And I want to welcome you. I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to Cali, Colombia. If you visit Cartagena, Medellin, those are the two most popular cities for expats and visitors, travelers, tourists. If you're interested in coming to Cali, Colombia and learning about Black culture, please reach out to me. Akeem Tolson, Live Be Do is the platform on all across all social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook.
Cool. My story is completely different.
I love it.
It has an aspect of COVID to it, but so I've lived abroad before. When I graduated college, I worked in Tokyo, Japan for about 8 months. That was my first international experience as far as staying away, like long-term period living. I was very, very homesick. I am a family girl, and then the time difference, it just wasn't working for me. So I ended up leaving before my time. But fast forward, right before I made a decision because my original plan to come out here, I originally wasn't going to stay. I was in a really bad space back in Atlanta. I had lost my job. I had almost lost my house, almost lost my car. And at that point in time, I was living with a friend's mother for what was supposed to be like a temporary situation, ended up being like a year-long situation. And this was around a time where we got our little checks from the government. I had to take a moment to myself and be like, if I had to make a move that will change me drastically, especially with everything that was going on in that time, I thought COVID was like, that's it. This is what goes down in history. This is like, to me, it was comparable to the Great Depression. It was comparable to the crash that happened back in 2008. It was just, to me, it was too drastic that we couldn't recover from it. That's the mindset that I had from it, because people were dying, reports was everywhere. And weird enough, it seemed like it was just only important in the States. I didn't hear a lot about any international countries really highlighting COVID the way that the States did. So just like you guys, I had the fear of like staying here. I felt like if I stayed here, I would get sick. You know, if I was around the wrong person, I was very cautious about who I was around, even my family. And in that moment, my family were one of the first people who was like, we getting a shot. Like, we got on a family call and everybody wanted to talk about getting a vaccinated shot. And I was like, I would beg to differ. So I was the only one in my family who opted out. Of course, they wasn't happy about that, especially my mother. She was just like, why would you do that? You know, what's going on? You see what's happening. You know, this is a way to protect yourself, especially with me already having an autoimmune disease. She had even more fear about me catching COVID. So the moment I got the check, I went to my friend and I was like, hey, I'm about to tell you something crazy, but I need you to just listen. Just hear me out all the way through. I was like, I think we should go to Mexico for 30 days. I did research prior to this. It was very hard to determine who was open and who wasn't, especially May 2020. I think that was like the height of everybody being shut in. Like, you got in trouble if you went outside. Everything was delivery, that type of like shut in. I was like, let's just go for 30 days and figure out what we're going to do with our lives in this new era that we're in. And then we'll come back refreshed, you know, motivated. We'll get away from the chaos, you know, have a clear state of mind. We booked the flights. I originally wanted to go to Colombia. That was my original first stop. But Colombia was completely like, nah, we're not taking nobody. And so I had settled on Mexico because it was the next closest thing. If I needed to get back, or, you know, if there was some sense of emergency, I wasn't too far off. I originally started off in Tulum, and this is the Tulum before Tulum was what it is today. Like, when I say This was like local town. This was local town. It wasn't as many tourists around. It was nothing really attracting tourism outside of the beach and beachside. But even that, you can tell that the people who were there who were tourists were long-term visitors. Like this was something that they do every year. It was just the way that they walked, the way that they moved. It was very local feel. So when we first got there, things were a little bit hectic because it wasn't no guidance as far as like where we could go, what we could do as tourists at that point in time. So we started to hang with locals and, we started to brush up on our Spanish. We started to learn things about the Tulum area and even learning about what happened to Mexico during the pandemic. Like Mexico took a really big hit in the tourism sector when COVID happened and a lot of businesses got shut down. And even to that point, a lot of businesses were trying to figure out how do we come back from this? I made a decision that I had the thought of staying, but I wanted something more city-like. Tulum was very spaced out, very local, not a lot happening, not a lot of action. So one of the locals told me to check out Playa de Carmen. It was like it's a little bit more active. It's like they're still COVID conscious, but he said it's a little bit more active and it's a lot more opportunity there as well. So I said, okay. So we went out, we came out to Playa for about a week. I fell in love with Playa and I was like, I'm moving here. So immediately I started doing research on how to live out here. Like, do I need a permit? Is there other things that I need to do? And these were things that I didn't think about doing prior to, because like I said, it was just supposed to be something I come in, I'm fixing my life to go back to the States. And, once I figure that out, I'll be going back to live in the States. And once I started to get with the locals, it was easier process than I thought it was. Literally just a handshake and you got it. Cool. So I lived in this really nice apartment, 2-bed, 2-bath with a lockout. That was $1,000 a month. I was paying like $1,200 on my mortgage, just my mortgage. And I don't have to pay utilities I have to pay utilities every month. I'm here for it. It was in my budget. Life was good. I'm on the beach. I'm out of the country. I was loving it. So in this point in time, when I decided to settle in Playa del Carmen, that was around November of 2020. We started to see more people come outside. So I started to see more Black expats, or what we like to call it here is digital nomads. So I started to meet more digital nomads. I started to understand the definition of what a digital nomad was, what an expat was. And so we started to interact with more people who were once either lived in the States or, came to travel and plan on going back to the States. And as I was talking to people and really interacting with the locals and interacting with the expats, I realized that there is so much opportunity out here. And so I had got with a local. He's a very popular local here. He hosts a lot of events, cultural events for locals to kind of get experience of other cultures. And he helped me start my first business, which was Playa Noir. So my focus with Playa Noir which was what I was doing back in the States. I was doing local events. I was in the event planning space. I was, into events, hosting for like the city of Atlanta. I've done some things for some, record labels and things like that. So I was like, I wonder what I can do out here. So when me and him got together, we started brainstorming about some ideas, and I saw the opportunity to do events for both Black and brown people. But the message was to have cross-cultural experiences. So locals can experience what Black culture is back in the States, and we can experience what Mexican culture is. But I would do things more in the creative artsy sector. So I had things like Clash. Clash was one of my biggest events, and we hosted those in cenotes, and we would take either music or dance aspects of each culture and combine the two. So we would have soca and salsa. So, you'll learn how to do some salsa dancing, you'll learn how to do some soca dancing, and we just kind of mix up the two musics throughout the night and, mix and mingle with other people. So I started to do that and just really implementing things that I saw the lack of. Like, I didn't see a lot of brunches here. So I host a locals brunch where we would have like foods or cuisines from different cultures, and we would eat off of each other's cultures and, things of that sort. And so time goes on. I'm starting to get a name out here. I'm starting to get more in tune with the local community. And I've always been a creative and artsy person. My love language is music. And so and that's also a passion of mine. So I was like, okay, what opportunity that I can bring out here that doesn't take away from the community, but gives back, but also expands the knowledge of mixing cross cultures. So I started House of Vibes. House of Vibes is my creative hub that I have out here, located in Playa del Carmen. And it started off originally as a co-working space, but then we branched out into just focusing on media and music. So I started to meet a lot of local artists, and it's some amazing creatives out here, from painters to rappers to singers to musicians. So I took advantage of that. I brought things that I've learned back from the States and implemented it here, but I also included the local community. So at this point in time, I didn't know a lot of Spanish. I knew enough to, conversate, but not enough to really communicate in a creatively way. So I started to host nights for Spanish people. Like, I would bring my friend in and be like, hey, if you want to, you can have the night for free and you can bring in people. So I would host like an open mic for those who speak English and open mic so for those who speak Spanish, just to be inclusive in the community. So yeah, that's kind of my story. I'm still in that same space, educating people, I'm mostly really focused on, I really want to get more people into the international business space. Cause like I said, I see the lack of, I feel like a lot of these, well, specifically in Mexico, Playa, Quintana Roo area, I feel like it can grow. It's still in its baby stages. Though Playa has been here for over 50 plus years, I still think it's in its baby stages. So I'm really encouraging people or expats to not just come over here and create a business and benefit for yourself, but figure out a way how you can benefit and give that back to the community, whether it's through education. So yeah, that's my aspect of it.
Cool. It's so funny because I heard every last one of you guys' stories, and there's a lot of similarities. I will definitely speak because COVID was definitely an eye-opening experience for me. And it 100% played into my expat experience, why I became one, what happened during that really kind of like shifted my life. I mean, it shifted everybody's life, but some people didn't know what to do with we don't know what to do, because everybody didn't know. And a lot of things that seemed foolproof before the pandemic, it was crazy. You turn on the TV and it's just more of what has been tried to be suppressed. Now it's just walking around and it's the only thing that's on TV. So you turn the TV off and then you try to start tapping in with yourself. Hobbies. I mean, I started planting. Didn't work that well in Florida. I had to move indoor because it was so hot. But coming up with different hobbies, a lot of people were with people for a long time and then found out that they didn't like their partner. They had not been alone by themselves for a while. They didn't realize that they would feel like so isolated when having no choice to be alone. So a lot of emotions came from the pandemic for me that kind of led for self-exploration. I remember we went to Jamaica. I guess it was like at a time where enough had transpired where you could go to Jamaica, but it was still during the pandemic. And I was sitting at a resort and looking into the ocean and saying, what are we going to do? For years before then, I had been bringing people to a place that I like going to, which was Cartagena. Somebody had brought me here, a Colombian that I went to college with. She had brought me here and said, yo, come out, just check it out. And everybody said, I don't know about Colombia. Are you certain? She said, yeah, I'm going to go with the local. Everything's going to be fine. And for years, I started bringing people out here once I realized that there were Black people here. Mi color actually meant something, and it was something that people were proud of, to be, share color with you, to be an additional Black person, that they saw us coming. And, what I thought was, hey, selling communication services, man, businesses are never going to stop moving. They just stop. Everything just stopped. And it led me to be able to say, all right, I'm come home and I'm actually become a travel agent. And I thought that was important, not because, travel, I'm going to sell you a bunch of trips, but more so what a lot of us talked about and why we became an expat, giving people that look like us the opportunity to see something different, giving people the opportunity that look like us to go somewhere and tap in. One of my mantras is, I want to show you the best food, fun, history, and culture, and get you connected with that culture, because the Afro diaspora is everywhere. A lot of people, when I'm posting pictures of living here in Medellin, they're like, it's a lot of Black people there. They're Colombian? I'm like, yes, I'm probably the only person in here that doesn't speak fluent Spanish. And giving people the opportunity to see that was something that was important. So I came back home and said, okay, I'm gonna be a travel agent. That's good. Now I've got something that almost makes it foolproof. You know, I can do a lot of things with travel agency. I can teach people. I can do virtual tours. Even if we're still locked in, people are going to be hungry to come out once we get out of the pandemic and be ready to travel. So I was looking forward to being able to be in kind of like a vehicle for people to be able to do those things. But the rat race kept me in the United States. You know, I think everybody understands the rat race, no matter where you're actually from, no matter where you were living. It's like you're on this wheel, luxury cars, that might be your hat. Even if you're not in luxury cars, just living somewhere safe for your family, safe for yourself, feeling like the things that you do, the things that you worked hard for actually are like, you can see it. Whereas the rat race in the United States, you get a raise. I work for myself, so my raises come from me. But when you get a raise, and then essentially gas goes up, groceries go up, the cost of living goes up. So that raise is not necessarily a raise. It's just more money on paper, but your quality of life, it never changed. And I realized that my quality of life would never change if I was going to stay in the United States, because it's not set up. There's a 1%, then there's the rest of us. And I am a part of the rest of us, just like everybody that's probably watching this. I'm sure, hi, Elon. I'm sure there's not any billionaires that's probably going to tune in and see what we're talking about. But I say that and say that everybody understands that. And when I looked at what jumping out of the United States, my dad's like, well, how much did you save? And I'm like, I'm about to sign a yearly lease that says that I have to pay $2,800 a month every month. And I won't need to spend $2,800 a month for everything, food. I don't have a car here. Total quality of life, I could probably cut that in half and just get rid of my rental payment. And then he kind of like opened up, and it kind of made sense. Like, wait, I'm thinking from a different perspective. And when we jumped out here and said, okay, let's do it. Our lease is up. I don't want to be here anymore. I didn't want to go to Cartagena, even though living in South Florida, definitely used to the weather. But I really think the biggest thing from why I became an expat or why I left, I was just tired of the rat race. And I knew that I was going to be in a scenario that I was never going to. I mean, I look at my parents and I'm like, my dad, you know, they have to keep working to be able to afford their lifestyle. You know, retirement, Social Security, we're at the age where like Social Security's not going to be there when you guys pay it, but it won't be there. I have a different quality of life here. I'll wake up with not the thought process of police brutality or really being treated differently immediately because I'm Black. Now, definitely, you're Black everywhere around the world, Black American specifically. So that doesn't necessarily change, but it's definitely a difference here that I find. I remember walking down the street and being like, is this what they feel like back at home? And that kind of freedom, I don't think it comes in the United States. So that's why I left. And I really don't see myself going back. I'm like, I go home and I'm like, first of all, for a week, I've already spent a month worth of groceries in a week. So let's stop like this stuff right now. And, you know, we'll segue into, you know, something I like to talk about, you know, the food. The reason why is because food quality is such a, it's, you don't realize until you go. And I mean, you go on vacation, and if you have one of those canned vacation experiences and you're like, I'm on an all-inclusive resort, you have no idea what the local food tastes like. However, if you do go to and actually go into the local places, get off the resort or an Airbnb, you can actually get into the food quality. And it's such a marked difference when I go home and my stomach hurts because chicken tastes different. They don't use as many seasonings as we are used to in the United States, but you'll realize that there are not as many people that are considered overweight here either. But yeah, I definitely want to hear some of the food experience because Bree used the words high vibrational food in regards to what she's giving her family. So I definitely got to get tapped in with that.
I do host a spiritual wellness retreat here on the island, specifically and intentionally for the healing and the intentional pouring into of African-American women. And kind of in line with your question about food, I think what's so beautiful about it is that when I bring these queens down here, all of the food is supplied by local vendors and local restaurants. So even though we have, you know, a few expats who have opened restaurants and all that, and yes, they do offer a certain level of food diversity that you wouldn't ordinarily get. Ultimately, the mission with my retreat is kind of bridging the gap between offering this exclusive and incredible opportunity for Black women to heal, but also to put money in the pockets of local restaurants when they wouldn't ordinarily get it. But fundamentally deserve it because of the amount of work they put into their food. What's always so funny is that when my queens come down here, we do 2 retreats a year. So we do March and May. We've done 3 thus far. March next year just sold out today. And then May next.
Thank you.
One of my favorite things is essentially offering them an opportunity to see the ways in which food can heal you, and to also experience the ways in which high vibrational foods, which is really just clean, properly fed and grown and nourishing foods, can like give you a real sense of clarity. Like, I don't think there's any coincidence between the fact that all of us visited these places, ate these delicious foods that fed our minds, bodies, and spirits, and we were able to make and set an intention with such clarity that we were going to take the leap and move abroad permanently. So I will say Belize has outstanding food. Stewed chicken is probably one of the most common dishes here, which is interesting because Latin America is big on like meat, and like grilled food or stewed food or fresh seafood. But living on the island, I mean, our seafood comes in abundance, as you can imagine. But even when I have women who come who are vegan or vegetarian, there's an abundance of things for them to choose from. And so I like not having to fear things or worry about things. Like, you don't have to be scared or feel guilty about the things that you consume. And that's one of the freedoms that you get by venturing outside the United States. Now, how many times have I gotten food poisoning? We don't need to get into that. But, I think that's just kind of a necessary kind of rites of passage when you move abroad, is you're going to get food poisoning. And then you may get it like once or twice. And maybe it's from the food. Maybe it's from the water.
I need some wood to knock on. Hold on.
The water. Oh, you haven't gotten it. That's such a blessing. I'm going to pull some of that good energy. Oh, that's good. Cute for you. Well, us on the Mexico Belizean side, it seems like my good sister has gone through it. So yeah, I gotten food poisoning, once or twice. My kids got it. It wasn't cute, but it's kind of a rites of passage. Now, when we tell our local friends, they're like, "Oh yeah, you're Belizean now. Like, you're an island gal now." I'm like, okay. I didn't know that. I had to pay my dues, but shit, we're here now.
Akeem, how was it out there in Calí? Because it's not on the coast, right?
Calí is about 2 hours from the Pacific coast. So on the subject of food,
talk to me, please.
What a pity that you live in Medellin. But
yeah, talk to me about Calí, man, because I feel like my experiences in Colombia, it 100% comes down to what city you go to and what you actually go about eating.
Absolutely. As far as food for Black people, the one good thing about Colombia is Colombia has a Caribbean coast and a Pacific coast. So we're bi-coastal, or we're on both coasts, both oceans. And in both places, you'll find Black people and you'll find great African influence. The food is well seasoned. The closer you get to the Pacific, I will say, the better the food gets, because the Pacific coast is where most of the Black people or most of the Afro descendants live. So the seasons here are nothing like Medellin, nothing like Bogota, nothing like Cartagena. Similar to Cartagena, but Cartagena is on the coast. So you get your fish, your fried fish, your seafood, your coconut rice. But here you get everything. You get like a full spectrum of food, because Calí as a city is landlocked. We're not on the coast, but we're like 2 hours from the Pacific coast. So you get, for example, in my neighborhood, we get bananas, plantains. I live in the city of Calí, and on my block, there's bananas growing on the curb. Bananas, I don't eat this, but they also have, what the hell is that melon that I hate? Papaya. I hate papaya.
It's definitely a love-hate thing in this house.
But papaya grows everywhere. Like every corner in Calí, there's like papaya trees. And I'm talking about in the city. Have you been in DC or New York? If you lived in a major city in the US, just imagine walking down the pavement and fruit trees like growing like I was just outside today. I think we have 4 seasons of mango, or not 4 seasons. We have 1 season. It's tropical. but we get 4 harvests of mangoes. So mangoes come 4 times a year. So just walking down the street today, dodging fallen ripe mangoes in the city, bro. Like
That sounds like a good life.
Yeah.
yeah. And when
This
you want
is
to talk
not-
about high vibrational foods, so here we're blessed with the fact that not only do we have a plethora of fresh fruits that like I've never even heard of. The variety, the diversity of fruit here, like star fruit, dragon fruit, like so many different.
The golden berry
varieties.
one is my favorite. What's it? Yucca?
Which one?
The golden berry? It's like yucca berry. It's a golden berry, but yeah, it's 1,000 fruits here that I've never heard of that you can only get in Colombia that are like.
Yeah. And steam, mango, and all breadfruit, and all kinds of things grow here. And like you can go to the market and like somebody said, like for $20, we have a market that comes to our neighborhood. $20, it feeds us for the week. Fresh fruit, eggs. Our eggs don't go in the refrigerator.
Nope.
Yeah.
That freaked me out the first time because I'm like, why are the eggs on the floor?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We get our butter from the market. We get our cheese from the market. We get our coffee from the market. We get our honey from the market. The only thing we might get from the grocery store is like if we run out of chicken or something, we'll go to the grocery store and get some chicken or go get bottled water or something like that. But the food here, one of the good things about the food here is, of course, you got the fresh fruit and things like that, organically grown, organically farmed. But then you have recipes that are African. Like we literally have like the secrets of like our ancestors here. Not only do they have recipes for food, but they make medicine, bro. You're in Medellin, you have biche, right? You've heard of biche.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's not just like eating just because you're hungry. The medicine is literally in the food. And like the Black families here have the recipes. Like what a pity you live in Medellin. You know what I'm saying? Because Medellin is a city. There's a large population of Black people in Medellin who migrated from the North Pacific. Here in Calí, you've got the whole coast. So you've got a mixture of like mostly from the South Pacific, but you've just got a mix of Black cultures. Like when I bring groups to Calí, we make sure that we go, all of our stops or all of our food stops are Black-owned restaurants. We put back into the community, but also they share with us like the recipes and the things that came, the generational knowledge and information that they keep in their family. Like it's just a rich experience here. So yeah, if you want to eat well, definitely, bro. Anybody in Colombia, anybody, if you're listening, if you're watching, and you're in Colombia and you're suffering and you want better food, it's not a Colombian thing. It's a geographic thing. Your location cannot provide the nourishment that you need. Come on over. We got you.
Akeem, that was very Suge Knight-esque. I appreciate the invitation.
I'm just trying to help.
It's such a refreshing thing to go somewhere and people are able to tell you about their culture and their history and really get an understanding. You know, I'm a very, I would say, unique individual. Not unique because we're all a part of this diaspora, but, you know, my great-grandfather was the son of the slave master. And that's all we know. Like, I know more about what made the white side, I guess, of me, wherever that is, than what actually makes me Black. I have no understanding. There's no bill of sale for my great-grandmother. I don't know anything. But I do know a large amount of information regarding Germans and Scotland and them coming here and everything else. So when I come to a place like Palenque and Cartagena, when I come out there to meet you in Calí, Akeem, you know, to be able to have people cooking with recipes that have been passed down from generation to generation, there's a story there. There's a reason why. I mean, I always think about how food, Anthony Bourdain was really good at showing how food, right? Rest in peace, Ant, man. He was really important. And also why I wanted to go travel around the world and see some of these things, because he showed that food could tie you in with the culture. There was a reason why these things, you know, planting and certain things even being here was because our ancestors carried seeds in their hair and brought these things over here. Like, do you know how, I mean, it's giving me goosebumps just talking about it because it's so powerful, and to be able to go into these places where we're tapping in with the culture and what was lost. And, I take people to Palenque and they're able to meet the medicine man. And the medicine man is like, we've got this ailment for this and this ailment for that. And it's like, big pharma is really bad back in the United States. And you really see here how tapped in the people are with how they prepare food, how they utilize nature and the things around them to better their lives. And better life doesn't mean a bunch of stuff and things. Better life comes down to quality of life. And that's really something I've tapped in with since being here. And I know that the food and those cultural experiences that come with the food have really been very helpful in kind of making me even more happy about, my decision to leave for certain. You talked about the Afro-Mexican community, Jasmine, and that's such an important thing because a lot of people don't know Mexico was a harbor for a lot of enslaved people looking to leave and get away. And the Mexican people were there with open arms. And to be able to tap in with that Afro-Mexican community, it has to be huge. You probably have learned like 1,000 things that we just don't know because most people don't know about the Afro-Mexican community, period. So I'm definitely interested in hearing about, some of the dishes, even just some of the like experiences you had that may be similar to what we just talked about.
Like, okay, let me start this off. My whole life, the thought of Mexican food was a hoax. When I came down here with the Mexican concept of what I know in the States, we talking Taco Bell, we talking Quesadilla, we talking your place. When I got here, that wasn't here. So what you taste in America, that Tex-Mex, that's not real authentic Mexican food at all. So it took me a while to kind of like hop off of that horse and get on the right one. Because, I was used to getting chips and salsa when I come to the table. They don't do that here. You get cactus, you may get carrots and jalapenos. I was used to cheese being on everything in Mexican food. They don't really have a lot of cheese in a lot of their dishes. So just getting off of the mindset of what the concept of food is based off the States and living in Mexico, that within itself was a shift. I was one of those people, when I found something I liked, I just ate it. That's it. I would eat it day, night, breakfast, lunch, dinner. And then how I actually started getting more into the food here is I was cooked, and it was crazy because I had this in Belize one time, but it was made a little bit different here. I tried iguana for the second time. I had iguana stew made by a Mayan woman. She made this stew in the ground, you guys. Watching her she's literally going up to plants and picking off herbs and spices and, meddling in I've never seen food broken down in that element. I've always seen it processed or, you shaking it over. These are people grabbing it literally from the earth. And as she's preparing the meal, she's telling you these aspects of what this can do to help heal you. Like I mentioned before, I have an autoimmune disease. And when I was back in the States, I was going from pill to pill. I was going from regimen to regimen just to kind of regulate my autoimmunity. When I got here and I really started to dig into the food, you guys, I don't take no medicine at all anymore for my autoimmune. None. 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 I heavily got into tea herbs through the Mayan community here. And it has changed my life drastically from my digestive to, I know it's y'all on here, but it's some women here, to even my menstrual. Everything has the food. I didn't realize how powerful of a medicine food actually is. And out here, between food and plant medicine, those are the two big things that there's a remedy for everything. And most of the time, a lot of us out here, we got Mexican grandmas. We call them mamas. Expat, our ex community, we call them mamas. And, they know everything. You got a hangover? Have this soup. Just drink this soup. They have herbs where you can literally just breathe in and it clears out all the mucus in your body. And this is all off of fruits, vegetables, and herbs. I literally healed my body by learning these aspects from Mayan women and local Mexicans. And one thing I can say that I do appreciate is the abundance of fresh fruit and vegetables. And I didn't know how to value it until I went back to the States the first time. And I got so sick, you guys. I got so sick to the point where I had to stay in the States for 2 weeks. And it was shit. I couldn't understand what was happening because, like I said, that was my first time going back to the States. And I was eating like what, my normal stuff that I normally eat when I'm there. And for some reason, my body was not taking it at all. So I was like, okay, and every time I went, it seemed like the food get worse and worse. Texture of it, the taste of it, the way it's cooked, it doesn't cut the same. Like I really started to like side eye American food and how they glorify or produce now, mind you, I have some knowledge in the cattle industry. So I understand that whole process of like fresh cut, braised, slaughtered type meat. And even that is totally different from here. And when I have friends or when I have, clients who come into town, they always complain about the food. And sometimes, now I ain't gonna say Mexico ain't got the best food, but we got our areas just like you guys. A lot of the good food is inner city. So closer to the more native areas. So like Mexico City, Veracruz, Oaxaca, and it's the central area of Mexico is where is the heart of the Afro-Mexican community. So they always have the best foods. But just being here and seeing how, certain fruits there's seasons for them. In the States, you can get the same stuff all year round if somebody's selling it. But just understanding how fruits are seasonal and the different types of fruit. This is my first time trying dragon fruit out here. And I was addicted to it for like a whole season. I ain't want nothing else. I just want dragon. I will buy them up in bulk, and you can get a bulk of fruits, fresh vegetables. And it is so popular here that we even have people who on carts. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to get my little fruit. But we have fruitarias on every corner here, every single corner here. So there's always an abundance of fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, fresh meat, even meat, understanding like what does fresh meat taste like. And I even noticed a difference in when I cook food. When I cook food here, the way that it tastes, the way that it processes when it hits heat is completely different from back in the States. I've noticed like even the processed food. And then recently with this foolishness they got going on when they approve lab produced chicken, I was like, oh, it's we not eating nothing when I go back to the States. Like, just the thought of that, of that, that's a thing that the States is willing to approve. I was like, yeah, no. But the foods out here, depending on where you go, Bree, I feel you, baby. The food poisoning is a rite of passage. It's going to happen, baby. You're going to go, you're going to be hungry. You're going to need some tacos. Only thing that's open is street food. But let me tell you, it's going to taste good going down. I can't say what it's going to, I can't speak for the other part. You probably going to be good.
I don't eat street meat. I'll eat anything, but I don't do street meat. I'll do like an arepa con queso, but the moment I get some meat in there, I'm like, nah, you're a little ways from a bathroom.
Let me say, out here, we will walk miles for some street food. Street food it's authentic. It's like you can't get any more authentic than
street food.
That cart.
And like the island, which I think is like super dope. What I love about the island is like people, like you've got all the restaurants, you got local restaurants, and then you've got those that are owned by foreigners. But then you also have like a lot of people who like cook. They just cook. They cook in their kitchen. They sell little plates for like 10 Belize. So that's $5. And I mean, it's a lot of stewed chicken. Sometimes it might be fish or spaghetti because, it's like, this is a very small island community and people look out for each other. And so if someone enjoys cooking, she'll literally make 30 plates. She'll sell them for barely, next to nothing. And then, they'll add on like $2 Belize for delivery and they drive their little golf cart with your little lunch. And, you pig out on some really good food.
One thing I can say apply, everybody knows where there's something good for something. Like, the best fish is on 58. That the best tacos is on 38, 32nd. You just know different places that has the best food, but you still try out new things. Go where the locals go. If you really want to experience, try something different and go. And it could be as simple as ask your taxi driver, take me to your favorite taco spot. What's your favorite restaurant? Let's go to your favorite restaurant. And they'll be more than happy to show you, where they eat, what they like to eat. And you actually getting a taste of, you know, a taste of their culture. So that's how I learned. It's just asking my friends, where do you go eat? Or what's your favorite restaurant?
Nah, Jazz, you definitely bring in something that it's weird. That's why I try to tell people, you guys got to get out and really like get out of America and really get into different cultures. You're going to see similarities. You know, people playing dominoes. Like, you'd be surprised. You go into these communities and it's like people are having a cookout. People are playing dominoes. The kids running around playing in the water. It almost feels just like at home. And what's I think is different is here people are open to show you, to welcome you in. Everybody, if you're a good person, you come with good vibes. You have your drawbridge low in regards to educating yourself about where you are and things. People are always going to have this like, let me show you, let you touch it, let you feel it. You know, you want to be a part of it. Yeah. I remember I was in Florida like 2 months ago and I had the local Medellin soccer jersey on. And a group of Colombians, like a whole family, stopped me and was like, why do you have that on? And I'm like, I live in Larelas. And they're like, no, you don't. And I'm like, yes, I do. And they just start partying on the street because I had this on. They're like, are you Colombian? And I'm like, no. They're like, you look like you could be one. And I'm just like, so now we're partying outside this rib place. Nobody knows besides the people that are like in, I guess, on it. And I'm like, you know, it's not as closed off in these different places. You know, I'm certain it sounds like it's not like that in Mexico. I see how Calí has opened its doors to Akeem, and he's turned around and just done so much with Afro tourism and trying to get more people to see themselves and others. And, you know, Bree with the retreat, that's like, it's something that's really big because wellness, we kind of always talked about it in a lot of different ways, but, you know, a place for women to go to be around other people. And I think overarching, we're looking for, you know, connecting a tribe. You know, a lot of people don't have people to go with when they look to go out the country, to have these experiences. And a landing page with all 4 of our different resources is really what this podcast is about. It's about giving people the opportunity to see themselves and others. It's about giving the people the opportunity to travel, whether it's temporarily or to go live and really feel like, hey, there's a community that's sitting there waiting for me, whether it's an expat community or just a community of others that are excited to share their culture, their experiences and everything. So everybody's here looking to educate and excite and really just setting the path forward for people that are interested in these things. So I really appreciate everybody's time here. Definitely exactly what it is that I wanted to do here today. So, you know, thank you.